right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'm John Dickerson. Join me for the Daily Report, weekdays on CBS News 24/7.
Tonight, as endorsements and donations roll in for Vice President Harris, what's her path to nomination? Then, the parallels between this year's DNC and 1968, and new details in the case of a woman fatally shot by law enforcement after calling for help on the CBS.
Every day, our President Joe Biden fights for the American people, and we are deeply, deeply grateful for his service to our nation.
We want the kind of president who sees around corners, who doesn't follow the stupid conventional wisdom right off the cliff, who fights for American citizens.
Director Cheatle, in your leadership, your agency got outsmarted and outmaneuvered by a 20-year-old. How can we have any confidence that you could stop and train professionals from a nefarious nation state?
Hello, I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. If you're experiencing political whiplash right now, don't worry, you are not alone. Over the course of the past 8 days alone, one candidate running for president survived an assassination attempt at a campaign rally, and the other, the sitting president, has now officially dropped out of the race altogether. We have entered the stranger-than-fiction era of the campaign cycle, and we'll guide you through it as best we can. Let's start with where we are today. The now presumptive Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, has just arrived in Wilmington, Delaware. It comes on the heels of raising more than $80 million in just the past 24 hours since Biden left the race. Here to talk about it all is CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa, who is with me here in Washington. We want to start tonight, however, with Senior White House Correspondent Weijia Jiang, who is now in Wilmington, Delaware. Weijia, good to see you. So you're in Wilmington, which is now, I suppose, the site of the Harris headquarters, campaign headquarters in Wilmington. She's expected to meet with staff there, as we understand it. What are we expecting out of that meeting?
President addresses running for president in public. When she spoke earlier at the White House, it was the first time we saw her since President Biden stepped down and he endorsed her for his job. But she did not talk about the campaign. She praised his leadership and talked about his legacy and everything he has done during his service so far as president. But she did not talk about replacing him at the top of the ticket, saving all of that talk for this moment we are waiting for here at campaign headquarters, because basically, Caitlin, she has to address this entire staff that has now been working for several months to elect Joe Biden as president, now asking them for a very quick turnaround to shift all of their energy, all of their focus on her. And we've talked to staffers who say, look, they don't really have time to process everything that's happened in the 24 hours. They feel like at the end of the day, their goal is the same, no matter who is at the top of the Democratic ticket, and that is to beat Donald Trump. So they are certainly excited, looking forward to hearing what Harris has to say to all the staffers here.
And Weijia, over the past 24 hours, we've seen, a wave of endorsements from Democrats coming for and standing behind Kamala Harris. But notably among them was this afternoon, Nancy Pelosi. She said that she's throwing her support behind Vice President Kamala Harris. Tell us about the significance of Pelosi here.
Well, Caitlin, we saw the power of Nancy Pelosi in the past few weeks. In fact, I think books will be written, probably one by our colleague right there, Robert Costa, about her role in President Biden's ultimate departure from this ticket, his ultimate decision, a very difficult one for him personally to make. But essentially, because of her power within the party, within Congress, it really didn't leave any room for him to stay in the race. And so the fact that she has now come out to endorse Harris, that really is shutting the door on the possibility of a challenger, on any speculation that she could be supporting an open primary process to elect a new nominee. And so that sends a big message to anyone who might be thinking about it, which is to back off and to stand in line and to support the vice president.
All right, our Weijia Jiang following it all for us at the campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. Weijia, thanks so much. And let's bring in Bob Costa. Bob, we mentioned $80 million raised since over the past 24 hours. I mean, we've been reporting about how Democrats were really concerned about fundraising if Biden were to stay in the race. I mean, this seems like a significant amount of money.
It's money, but the question is she bringing the party together? So she has grassroots support, which is going to be very powerful to compete against former President Trump's campaign, but she still has some work to do ahead of the convention. It's not just about a VP pick. She knows, based on my conversations with top Democrats, that this can't seem like a coronation, politically speaking, that she has to, in her words, earn the nomination and show that she's bringing in all the different factions. And it's complicated because the progressive wing wants to make sure they feel included, that it's not just about putting a perceived centrist on the ticket. And so the money's coming in. Democrats are feeling good. But it's also a sensitive time because President Biden is still president. And he's still someone who has not spoken publicly since the decision. It was a painful decision for him. So, yes, the money's pouring in. Yes, Democrats feel good. But it's a complicated time.
Complicated, historic. I mean, I almost can't believe we're covering all of this right now. And we were, just a few days ago covering Donald Trump picking his running mate. Now we are all waiting to see who presumably Kamala Harris chooses as her running mate. Can you give us a sense of kind of the names being tossed around and kind of politically speaking, what a Kamala Harris presidency might be, or nomination, I should say, might be looking for in a running mate?
There's a real debate among my Democratic sources about whether this even matters. Is it an inside parlor game in Washington? Because the election's now about Vice President Harris if she's the nominee and Trump. Is anyone going to now vote for Donald Trump because J.D. Vance is on the ticket? Maybe. But the Republicans were already positioned to win Ohio. He's maybe going to help in the industrial Midwest, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. But for the Democrats, the same challenge remains, which is, does the vice presidential pick really add political capital to the ticket? It's uncertain at this point, because even if you put Governor Cooper of North Carolina, who's very presentable, he's seen as a strong politician, appealing, or you put the younger governor, Andy Beshear, from Kentucky on the ticket, yes, you bring the South onto the national ticket, but does someone suddenly say they're going to now vote for the Democratic ticket because the vice presidential nominee is someone from the South and more centrist? Vice President Harris is the issue. Former President Trump is the issue. So they want to do no harm with the pick more than making some kind of chess move politically that's, we're now going to play in the South. Now, you and I, we've spent a lot of time in Georgia. Now, picking someone from the South could be very helpful, maybe, and having some Southern appeal for the ticket, especially with someone from California atop. But at the same time, this is about not having a Thomas Eagleton situation. In 1972, the Democratic nominee, George McGovern, picks Tom Eagleton to be on the ticket, and then he flames out. He has to leave the ticket. They have to put Sergeant Shriver on at the last minute to be the nominee because they didn't properly vet Eagleton. And that's infamous in American politics, is how you make a mistake. The Democrats' real problem now, they have Covington and Burling, a big D.C. law firm doing the vetting. Does Covington and Burling, along with the Harris team, really vet these people? Because, yes, if you're a governor right now, you get some scrutiny, but we all know the local press across the country has been diminished, unfortunately, because of lack of advertising. So are these people really going to handle it under the spotlight? That matters more for Vice President Harris, I'm told, than any kind of political calculation.
Especially with such a crunch time in terms of the calendar here. And then just very quickly, I know you spoke to Donald Trump yesterday by phone. We're talking about how this scrambles things for the Democrats. It also scrambles some things for Republicans as well.
Well, he said it didn't. I mean, it's notable when I pushed him on, well, how does this change the race? He said it doesn't change the race. I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, I'm running against the Biden record. So he believes he can just take all of his ammunition politically and put it towards Vice President Harris's case and say that she doesn't have an effective record to run on. And you're looking there, he's going after the, he calls her, well, does not call her intelligent in that post. And he called President Biden the worst president in our conversation. He was critical of Harris in her handling of the issue of immigration and the border. So we're looking at a situation. I was discussing this with Republicans and Democrats yesterday. It's going to be a political battle, brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
what the Democrats don't fully, I think, recognize as I'm making the phone calls is that I've covered Donald Trump very closely since really 2010, 2011. Started talking to him a lot. Trump is going to go places personally, already going on the issue of intelligence. There's the possibility of gender, other issues being brought up in a way that's visceral, brutal, raw, cruel. It's all coming.
Yeah.
And for now, they're getting a lot of money. They're feeling good. But what's President Biden's role going to be? Is he going to speak up in a forceful way? He's given a statement. His Oval Office address, if he makes one, will be closely watched.
Yeah.
But this is going to be such a knockout, drag-out fight for Vice President Harris. I mean, think about we covered 2016 together. Senator Rubio, Senator Cruz, how their careers have been affected by going up against Donald Trump.
Yeah. I mean, and I was covering the rally that Trump had in Michigan on Saturday night, just 1 week after the assassination attempt, and there has been no change in Donald Trump's rhetoric, his message, his demeanor. It is the same Trump as he's always been, and that's something to watch going forward. We will keep an eye on all of it. We don't know what the next day or so brings, but as you always say,
we don't know what the next hour brings.
Assume nothing, as you always say. So we will stay tuned. Thank you, Bob, very much. And hundreds of Democratic lawmakers are backing Vice President Kamala Harris for the presidential nomination, and 2 caucus chairs will join us next from Capitol Hill. You're streaming America Decides.
Coming up, our series. Wait a minute. Tom, is that you working the camera?
Keep leaning out of your close-up.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
That desired farm is a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
Approximately 200 Democratic lawmakers have endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for the presidential nomination since yesterday. Among them are leaders of two of the most influential caucuses in Washington, California Congresswoman Judy Chu and Nanette Barragan. Representative Chu leads the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and Representative Barragan leads the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Thank you both so much for being here. We appreciate your time and look forward to this conversation. Congresswoman Chu, I want to start with you. You have endorsed Kamala Harris for this nomination, but does your caucus officially endorse her as well?
I am very proud to announce that we accelerated the vote process, and the political arm of our caucus, which is called Aspire PAC, did officially endorse Kamala Harris for her nomination as President of this United States.
And Congresswoman Barragan, I want to also ask you the same question for the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Is your caucus officially endorsing Harris for the nomination?
Yes, last night the Bull PAC, which is our political arm, did endorse Vice President Kamala Harris to be the nominee. So we're super excited to see the tri-caucuses all join together now.
And Congresswoman Barragan, while I have you, I mean, you appeared on our show just a few weeks ago to really underscore your caucus's support for President Biden. There were a lot of people calling for him to get out of this race, but you were not one of them. How do you feel right now about the idea of that he did exit the race facing this mounting pressure?
Well, I was very sad. There were a lot of tears involved yesterday when I heard the news, and I had an opportunity to talk to the president about that yesterday in a call to him, and thank him for his service and tell him about how sad I was. Yet on the other hand, he's endorsed the Vice President Kamala Harris. She is now in this race, and she also called to say that she's running. And so it's an exciting time for us to get behind her, unite the party, and stop worrying, start working, and get to work. And that's what we got to do.
And Congresswoman Chu, I think it's significant to note that Kamala Harris did not win any primary votes this cycle. Biden's name was on the ballot. What about this process? Critics may say that this is undemocratic, the idea of the nominee not having had any votes from actual voters. What do you make of that?
Well, of course, Biden has withdrawn from the race. Therefore, the nomination is open for the delegates, and the delegates will cast their votes. So it will be a democratic process. It will get the input of the delegates to the convention, and I think that it will be something that people can feel was justly done. I can also say that there is tremendous support for Kamala Harris. In fact, I haven't seen anybody that could even counter her nomination. We are so excited because she is obviously very capable, having served in the vice president's role. She has been able to reach out to so many of us, and we know she will be a very, very effective campaigner. So I don't think that you will see too much dissension there. In fact, I think you will see a lot of unity for her nomination.
And Congresswoman Barragan, I want to ask you kind of the same question, which is you now have a situation where, and I understand the time crunch, certainly, but delegates and Democratic officials are choosing the nominee here, not voters.
Well, 14 million voters voted for a Biden-Harris ticket. So in my opinion, they voted for this team. The fact that President Biden has stepped aside doesn't discount that she was been on the ticket, and the voters have had their voices heard. Now, look, we're in a process now where the president has stepped aside, and that process is being followed. And what you're seeing, as Judy mentioned, is this outpouring of support that even the delegates are overwhelmingly, lining up to support her and get behind her. I think our party and our people know that it's time for us to unite. It's time for us to get together, to do the hard work. We're about 100 days out, and there's nothing greater than a second Trump presidency and Project 2025, and what that means for the American people, what that means for women's reproductive rights, what that means for Latinos, and this idea and this vision to do mass deportations. So much harm will come from a second Trump presidency. And I think people right now are getting excited about our vice president. She's going to be on the road. I'm happy to go on the road with her anytime and make sure we're doing all we can to reintroduce her to the American people and tell her story of what she has been doing and what she's going to continue to do for this country.
And Congresswoman Chu, I know you are from California as well, but I'm curious if there's anyone that you think that Kamala Harris should choose as her running mate, and whether you think that decision matters in terms of moving voters.
The most important person is the one who's running for president, so I am so glad that Kamala Harris is on top of this ticket. But of course, I think that there needs to be a wise choice for the vice presidential candidate, and it should be somebody from a battleground state that could help us get us over the finish line for this election. This election is so critical, and we know that we can't take a second Trump presidency. We know that we have Project 2025 looming over us in terms of what this Trump administration could do to the American people. There's so much at stake besides the fact that we have to make sure that we get reproductive freedom once again back into the United States, and that's what a Kamala Harris presidency would mean.
And Congresswoman Barragan, just really quickly, anyone that you would like to see join the ticket with Harris?
I have all the trust and the faith in the vice president as she has this difficult decision to make. I'm sure she's assessing all the factors, whether it's a battleground state, whether it's male, whether it's female, what they bring to the table. But at the end of the day, at the top of the ticket, we've got the most qualified person that's running to be president, and we'll see who she picks as her running mate. I think we're all anxious to hear about that soon.
We are too. Congresswomen Judy Chu and Annette Barragan, thank you both so much for being here. What a time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also on Capitol Hill, the director of the Secret Service told lawmakers today, quote, "We failed on the day of the assassination attempt against Donald Trump." We'll show you how they responded. You're streaming America Decides.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Both Republican and Democratic lawmakers called on the director of Secret Service to resign today during a hearing centered on the assassination attempt of former President Trump.
This committee is not known for its model of bipartisanship, but I think today we came together unanimously in our disappointment for your lack of answers.
I will be joining the chairman in calling for the resignation of the director, just because I think that this relationship is irretrievable at this point, and I think that the director has lost the confidence of Congress at a very urgent and tender moment in the history of the country.
Although she has not stepped down from her position, Kimberly Cheatle said at the top of the hearing that the shooting was, quote, the most significant operational failure for the Secret Service in decades.
The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again.
A 20-year-old shot Donald Trump during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania just over 1 week ago. He killed a rally attendee as well and critically wounded 2 others. Our Scott McFarlane is following all of this for us on Capitol Hill. Scott, I also know, of course, and our viewers know that you were there on the ground covering the Trump rally when the shooting happened. You're covering all of this on Capitol Hill for us today. We're grateful for your reporting, and as your colleague, I'm really grateful to see you here right now. It's not every day that you see Comer and Raskin agreeing on something, as they did on this hearing today. What did we learn?
This was unlike any congressional hearing I've seen. Even by congressional standards, it was withering, relentless, blistering criticism of the witness, who just happened to be the director of the Secret Service. I can tell you from my experience in Butler, Pennsylvania, it's not just members of Congress, but thousands of attendees of that Trump rally who likely want some answers as to how something so unfathomable could happen. How could a shooter get so close with an AR-15 and fire shots at a presidential candidate? The questions were voluminous, the answers were not. The Secret Service director on so many occasions today said she couldn't answer granular questions about the sequence of events, the evidence found at the scene, because she says this is currently the subject of an FBI investigation. Staging this hearing 9 days after the assassination attempt, to a degree, set the Secret Service director up to be in a position where she felt she couldn't answer questions. But the lack of answers infused in this hearing, Caitlin, a frustration with the director and all these calls from both parties for her to resign or to fire people inside her agency. It was notable that James Comer, the Republican from Kentucky, and Jamie Raskin, the Democrat from Maryland, would agree on anything at this political moment, but they agreed the director has to go.
Coming together for the sake of many Americans who want answers too. Scott McFarlane, thank you very much, and it's really great to see you.
Same.
And Vice President Kamala Harris is seeing a surge in donations. Just how much money she's bringing in after President Biden dropped out of the race? That's next. You're streaming America Decides.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7. That is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. All 24 Democratic governors have endorsed Kamala Harris's White House bid. That includes Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, who says she will be the campaign co-chair. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other lawmakers also announced their support for Harris, and multiple state Democratic parties are pledging their delegates to the vice president. Our Ed O'Keefe joins us now from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Ed, good to see you. I mean, usually when you're at Rehoboth, you're having ice cream, sitting on that beach behind you, not in a suit as you are now, but these are not normal times, so let's start there. The president has been at Rehoboth for several days. We haven't heard from him. We've seen the letter that he put out on social media yet, but we have not heard from him in a televised setting. Give us a sense of what we know about how he came to this decision.
Yeah, and good to be with you, Caitlin, a place I know you know very well is Rehoboth Beach. The president today got his regular security briefings, and the White House told us there were no public events scheduled. So once again, another day of not seeing the president in public. This decision was made Saturday night alongside the First Lady and just 4 other trusted aides who finally came to an agreement that perhaps it was time to hang it up. So he started drafting that letter to the nation that was released Sunday afternoon on social media. He informed the vice president Sunday morning. He told his White House Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients, his campaign chief, Jen O'Malley Dillon, and it went on from there. Spent the afternoon Sunday speaking to supporters and members of Congress to explain the decision and to thank them for their support, just as the vice president began calling hundreds of Democratic Party officials to shore up their support. We expect the president to address the country at some point in the coming days. We don't yet know when. Part of the reason we don't is because he's still recovering from a COVID-19 diagnosis. The White House physician putting out a letter this afternoon saying he's now taken 10 rounds of Paxlovid and is doing much better than he had been doing over the weekend, though there had been reports of a nagging cough, and that might be part of the reason why we've yet to hear from him publicly. He's also expected at some point later this week to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is headed to Washington for a congressional address on Wednesday. When exactly that happens, where it happens, whether it's before or after he addresses Congress remains to be seen. And of course, the vice president is scheduled to hold her own meeting with Netanyahu as well this week.
All right, no such thing as a slow news summer, as we know well. Ed O'Keefe, thank you very much. We appreciate your reporting. And CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins us now with new polling. All right, Anthony, so it's been a whirlwind 24 hours, but from your sense and polling voters, what are Democrats thinking about their chances now?
Yeah, a lot of new polling these days, right? Caitlin trying to keep up with all this. Now, look, overwhelmingly, Democrats told us in their instant reaction to this that they approved of Joe Biden stepping aside. Maybe that doesn't surprise, because for weeks now following that debate, a lot of Democrats had been saying that they thought he ought to. But there's a strategic component to this, too, of course, right? For any political party. There's a big ratio here of Democrats that feel like now their chances, now that Biden has stepped aside, will be better as compared to worse. I would, however, point out this just over a quarter that say, well, it depends on who the nominee is. But by and large, it's a positive feeling because, of course, a lot of these Democrats, they were voting for Joe Biden. They want to beat Donald Trump. And so they think their chances have gone up, at least initially, Caitlin.
And how are Democrats feeling about Kamala Harris? I mean, we've seen in the past 24 hours, all of those endorsements we just described, the party is clearly coalescing around her.
Well, the rank and file seem to be getting on board as well. And I'll show you this. You've got 8 and 10 who say, given the choice, Kamala Harris or someone else, right? And that's a general someone else because there isn't a formal challenge otherwise. They say the party should nominate Harris. But the other part of this, though, is the timing, Caitlin. I want to show you this. You might expect people want to be sort of in a hurry to do this, right? Again, back to that strategic component. Well, 6 and 10 say they would just as well have party leaders pick the candidate now as opposed to the 4 and 10 who say, wait till the convention and let the delegates pick. So that process as it unfolds has at least a majority support for being pretty fast, Caitlin.
All right, Anthony, with this race changing by the day, I know we're going to have lots of polling that we'll be interested in our future. So Godspeed, Anthony. Look forward to it next time.
You as well. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you. And Kamala Harris's campaign says it raised $81 million in its first 24 hours. That includes hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors. Our CBS News senior business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent is here following the money. Jolene, good to see you. I know you've been speaking with donors, including Director Rob Reiner. What did he tell you?
Hey, Caitlin, that's right. So if you think about the past couple of weeks, it's certainly been a roller coaster for the Democrats when it comes to donations. And there was a pause when it came to that post-debate fallout with President Biden's performance. And we've been speaking with multiple mega donors on the Democratic side, and they say they are now, by and large, also endorsing Kamala Harris, the vice president, and putting their money towards her. I had a chance to interview Rob Reiner, the storied Hollywood director and longtime mega donor who called for Biden to get out of the race. And this is what he said to me last night.
How much more money are you prepared to donate to Vice President Harris's campaign?
Well, Michelle and I have donated a ridiculous amount of money, way out of our ability at this point. But we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get in the White House.
Reiner also telling me that he is supporting for the VP pick, of course, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, another major mega donor, also bringing up Senator Kelly as well as a very good, solid pick. But what we're hearing is overall, there is some discord in Silicon Valley, of course, with some billionaires, including Elon Musk, backing President Trump. But by and large, the people who were behind President Biden, those mega donors, are still continuing to move to support Vice President Harris. And what's really interesting is in that record-breaking $81 million that was raised in the last 24 hours, the Harris campaign is saying that 888,000 of those people, 60%, are people who have not yet made a contribution this 2024 cycle. So we'll have a lot more reporting on this across our platforms, but it's interesting to be following this money and seeing where the billionaires are going and, of course, those smaller amount donors who are giving at the more grassroots level, Caitlin.
Yeah, and Jillian, that's so interesting about those small dollar donors who haven't donated before, because that suggests that there may be some new enthusiasm in this race that just wasn't there before, as we've been talking to voters across the country. Thank you so much, as always, for your reporting. It's great to see you.
Great to see you.
And what kind of challenges could Vice President Kamala Harris face now that she's running for the top job? Well, that's one of many questions I'll ask someone who has traveled across the world with her and written a book about it. Our conversation is coming up. You're streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
On 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Now, the vice president is smart and strong, which will make her a good president. But she's also kind and has empathy, which can make her a great president. And the contrast between her and those running on the other side couldn't be clearer.
And that was Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. Get to know his name. He's endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris's White House bid now. He's one of many Democrats who could become her VP pick if she gets the Democratic nomination. Jasmine Wright and Susan Page join us now to discuss. Jasmine is politics reporter for Notice, and Susan is the Washington bureau chief for USA Today. She's also the author of Madam Speaker, a biography of Nancy Pelosi. And actually, Susan, I want to start with you on that note, just given you can kind of be our Pelosi whisperer here. We've been talking about her role in all of this. Can you kind of reflect on the significance of Pelosi in this moment?
You know, Nancy Pelosi behind the scenes played a bigger role than any other figure, I think, in engineering Joe Biden out of this race. And it's not because she's anti-Biden. She's a longtime ally of Joe Biden. She helped pass some of the most critical legislation of his presidency. But she concluded that he couldn't win. She concluded that he was going to cost Democrats seats in the House of Representatives in November. And so she worked on listening to the members, having members come out publicly, sometimes quietly, sometimes with more noise, saying Biden should step back. She herself gave a very important speech on Morning Joe, a show that we know that President Biden watches, saying we need him to make a decision. This was after he thought he had made a decision to run again. This was a message from her that wasn't good enough. And finally, she had a final meeting with him, very tough, making the case with the data that he could not win, and that all being crucial to his decision to step back. Caitlin.
Yeah, that moment that you just described seemed like the big turning point in this race. Susan, thank you for that. Jasmine, you and I covered Kamala Harris's primary campaign in 2020. Yes. You were on the ground with her. I'll let you be kind of our Kamala Harris whisperer here. The significance of this moment for her, but also kind of what she can bring to this ticket. I mean, we talk so much about Black women, especially being kind of the backbone of this party. I'm curious kind of if you think the support is there from your reporting. I know you've done so much reporting on this.
Right. Well, I think the significance, I mean, I can't even really quantify it because it is so huge, particularly as someone who's covered Harris since 2018. If you think back to 2019, November, when she dropped out of the race, it was really like a bomb went off, not just inside of that campaign, but across the political spectrum. People were really upset that the only Black woman in the Democratic primary was leaving, but she just couldn't get enough support to continue it. So come back to now, right? The last 24 hours have been insane when you think about all of the Democrats that have rushed to support the vice president in her bid now for the White House. I don't think that anybody from 2019 could have dreamed of this moment, but it is here. And so when we talk about the significance of Harris's trajectory, it's also about her being a Black woman and being able to use that bank of support. Just last night, 40,000 Black women got on a Zoom call. Outside allies raised over $1 million just to support the vice president. Of course, we know about her AKA background. We know about the work that she's been doing on abortion, not just for Black women, but Black women have been center in her women's rights campaign. So I think that she has a massive swell of support with Black women, particularly politically active Black women. The question is, can she expand that base? And I think that's where the VP pick is going to come in and other things. But I mean, the significance of this last 24 hours has been monumentous to people I've talked to.
Yeah, that Zoom call is really interesting. Shows kind of that grassroots support. Susan, on that VP pick, we heard a little sound from Governor Beshear, and I'm curious if you're hearing, any other names. And also, I mean, you've covered so many of these campaigns. We're talking about this one is certainly history making, but I'm kind of wondering how you're feeling about covering this moment in time.
This is actually the 12th presidential campaign I've covered, and some of them have been really interesting and momentous and historic, but there's never been a presidential election in modern times like this one. I mean, starting with the fact that it's a rematch between a former president and the current president. Then we have the assassination attempt. I mean, just in the past week, the assassination attempt, this remarkable Republican convention of a united party remade in Trump's image. And now Biden recognizing kind of the uphill battle he was facing in doing well and leading his party in November, stepping away. We haven't seen a president do that since LBJ. So this election, whatever happens from now on, is going to rank as one of the most historic and remarkable and turbulent in American history.
Turbulent indeed. I think we all have whiplash over the past few days. Jasmine, in terms of the vice president now having to pick someone for her role, what are you hearing about some possible names and kind of how the base might react to some of those names? Yeah, well, I think the conventional thinking around the vice president and her allies is that they have to pick somebody very different than her, but who can appeal to America. So their focus from now or from the last 24 hours, but even before then, when her outside allies were thinking about what comes next after that debate, have been on those white swing state governors who they feel can really expand Harris's electability beyond just the base of voters of Black women, women voters and young voters, but to those white voters, but to those male voters that maybe she would have a difficult time of getting by herself. But other people that I've talked to, they want more military figures. They want people like that. So I think it's going to be
come down to what the vice president chooses, but it's absolutely thinking about how do they expand the base beyond what Harris already brings to the ticket.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Donald Trump agrees to a debate with Harris as well. Stay tuned. Busy summer for all of us. Susan Page and Jasmine Wright, thank you both so much. We appreciate it. And a Democratic president shocked the country when he announced he wouldn't run for re-election. That was in 1968. We'll take a look back at LBJ's decision. That's next. You're streaming America Decides.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has a glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish that you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good? Mm-hmm. Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
So if we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party? Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024? Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
When people say who's first to get in the morning, that would be me. Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here.
We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way.
We take you places, we teach you new things, and we make you feel like, you know, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
And welcome back. We have breaking news. President Biden has just called in to speak with campaign staffers in Delaware. Vice President Kamala Harris is also set to speak there. We have some of that. Let's listen in.
I'll be speaking shortly, and I want to say to the team, embrace her. She's the best. I want to call today to thank everybody in this effort. I know yesterday's news was surprising, and it was hard for you to hear, but it was the right thing to do. I know it's hard because you poured your heart and soul into me to help us win this thing, help me get this nomination, help me win the nomination, and then go on to win the presidency. But you know, you're an amazing team. But we've got a great. I think we made the right decision. I know how hard you've worked, how many sacrifices you've made, and so many of you uprooted your lives for me, and the kind of commitment few people make for anything these days, but you made it. And I've been honored and humbled. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. My word is a Biden, that for all you've done for me and my family. And we built the best campaign in organization in history. I've been doing this. I always kid and say, I know I'm only 40, but I've been around a long time. I don't know of a better campaign organization, grassroots campaign. You know, we have over 230 offices opened. We have over 2,000 paid staff, and we have literally several thousand volunteers on a regular basis, thousands of them. And they've been relentless and tireless in reaching out and contacting voters. The leadership of this campaign has been amazing. Jen O'Malley Dillon, Julie Quinn, Michael Tyler, Rob Flaherty, Rufus on raising money, and so many more. You built this team, you brought them together, you brought us together, you've inspired them, and you've done what leaders do. Now we got to, you know, the name has changed at the top of the ticket, but the mission hasn't changed at all. And by the way, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be out there in the campaign with her, with Kamala. I'm going to be working like hell, both as a sitting president, getting legislation passed, as well as in campaigning. You know, what we still need to save this democracy. And Trump is still a danger to the community, he's a danger to the nation. And just ask my foreign policy colleagues, my counterparts, and other people around the world and at home. Look, so I'm hoping you'll give every bit of your heart and soul that you gave to me to Kamala. And I want you to know, I won't be on the ticket, but I'm still going to be fully engaged. I've got 6 months left in my presidency. I'm determined to get as much done as I possibly can, both foreign policy and domestic policy. Keep lowering costs for families, continue to speak out on guns and child care, elder care, prescription drugs, and climate. Climate still is the existential threat that we face, and if we don't win this thing, it's all in jeopardy. And we got to keep working for an end to the war in Gaza. I'll be working very closely with the Israelis and with the Palestinians to try to work out how we can get the Gaza war to end.
All right, you've been listening to President Biden, who has called into campaign headquarters there in Wilmington, Delaware. Our Ed O'Keefe joins us now from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Ed, we were just talking a few moments ago about how we haven't heard from Biden. We still haven't seen him on camera, but we have now heard his voice. Tell us what you make of that call just now.
Well, this was a call into a all-staff meeting there at the Wilmington, Delaware headquarters. That was Julie Chavez Rodriguez, one of the top campaign officials who was addressing the troops, and then the president called in. We're expecting that the vice president is going to address that room as well this evening at some point here in the next little bit, and then have a meeting with several of the senior campaign officials to go over some of the new plans. The call in by the president caps a really whirlwind day for that campaign. It's now officially the Harris for President campaign. Word has come that about $81 million was raised by it in the 24 hours since the president's stunning announcement, a signal that Democrats are eagerly participating yet again in this process and willing to help her out, in essence proving the point that many in the party had been making to the president and his top advisors, that the enthusiasm for him was not there. And now, do you want to go back to the vice president? Let's do that.
All right, Ed, so we see on our screen that Harris is now speaking to those campaign staffers that you just mentioned. I know it's been a whirlwind of a week for all of us. I am amazed that we're all still standing here. But what is the significance of this moment? Harris now speaking to a campaign that, you know, she was running as vice president, the vice presidential nominee, and now she's suddenly thrust to the top of the ticket.
Yeah, I mean, look, her name was on the door in essence already. Yesterday, they went and officially changed it with the Federal Election Commission to make it the Harris for President campaign. But this is quite a moment. You now have a woman once again on the verge of being nominated by the Democratic Party. The first time an African American and a South Asian woman is going to be nominated by the party. She has moved pretty swiftly in the last day to secure delegates. She has all 24 Democratic governors across the country now on her side. She is amassing delegates almost by the hour as various state delegations meet to affirm that their decision to support her at the convention in Chicago next month. We're expecting New York, for example, to do it later tonight, with the governors urging there. And we know she's making moves to meet with top congressional leaders, potentially add a few people to the staff, and begin plotting out her argument against the former president. One of the things that you're going to hear Democrats talking a lot about is that this is a former prosecutor, as a district attorney and attorney general, who used to prosecute criminals. And now, in the view of Democrats, she's running against one. In essence, she knows how to prosecute a criminal, and she'll do it again. So that's part of the change in direction and tone, in that they believe she can very forcefully take on the former president, perhaps more succinctly than the sitting president, and brings a different vision, different perspective, and frankly, just a different vibe to a campaign that was in need of it. And as evidence today, is getting a good response from the party faithful who are willing to donate.
All right, our Ed O'Keefe covering every minute of this campaign. It's a pleasure to do it with you. What a wild ride. Well, stay tuned. Thank you very much.
And it's only Monday.
It's only Monday. And that does it for us today on this Monday. But we will be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. Who knows what the next day will bring. The Daily Report, though, with John Dickerson starts right now.